So, who is your favorite fictional character? Is it a hero? Is it a villain? Is it a protagonist or an antagonist? Are they strong, funny, intelligent, oblivious? Do you see aspects of yourself in them, or are they completely different from your real personality? When I thought about my favorite characters from all of the television, movie, and literature that I had consumed over my life, I couldn't really find a direct correlation between all of the characters that I tended to latch on to. Sometimes it's the ruthless and twisted villain that gets me. Sometimes it's the stoic and unwavering hero that becomes my favorite character. Sometimes it's the lovable comic relief side character that makes the biggest impression on me. Sometimes it's whatever you would call this dude.
You are one creep, motherfucker.
You can give me your analysis on the blood spatter on these killings. You think I'm here to invite you to my nephew's bris?
I didn't know you were Jewish.
But when it comes to the ever-popular and seemingly never-ending anime series Naruto, despite a very wide pool of potential prospects, there's only ever been one character that I could call my favorite, and that's Shikamaru Nara. Shikamaru is not the main character of Naruto, obviously, and it's honestly hard to even call him part of the main cast, seeing as, at least in the OG series, the main cast is mostly comprised of the titular protagonist Naruto, his wannabe love interest Sakura, his rival and more accurate love interest Sasuke, and their mysterious ninja teacher named Kakashi. The main cast is complemented by a rogues gallery of countless other characters, but Shikamaru is one of the more heavily featured side characters in the show. In the sequel series Naruto Shippuden, Shikamaru, as with many of the other side characters, is given even more time to shine and even gets an entire arc that's dedicated to his character growth. But that's just the general When describing Shikamaru's personality, at least when we're first introduced to him, there are only two traits that need to be mentioned. Shikamaru is incredibly smart.
The kid has an IQ of over 200.
200?
But Shikamaru is also incredibly lazy and unmotivated. Shikamaru is just one member of an elite graduating class of upstart ninja soldiers that the show calls Genin. Every Genin is assigned to a 4-man squad comprised of 2 other Genin and one more experienced ninja called a Jonin who leads the team. Shikamaru's 2 other Genin teammates are his childhood friends, Ino Yamanaka and Choji Akamichi, and they're led by the only ninja in the show with a Newport cigarette sponsorship, Asuma Sarutobi. Together, they're called Team 10, and out of all of the side character teams in the show, they definitely get the most screen time and attention next to the main cast of Team 7. I mentioned earlier that Shikamaru was incredibly smart, and with this incredible IQ, he becomes the main strategist for Team 10's missions. While Shikamaru is a genius, he unfortunately is not a great fighter in direct combat, so instead of fists, he uses a secret technique passed down in his clan called the Shadow Possession Jutsu to immobilize his enemies from afar. Pretty much all of his strategies involve tricking his opponent into stepping into the reach of his shadow so that he can freeze them in place long enough for one of his teammates to strike them down. This means that his survival in battle is completely dependent upon his ability to outsmart his opponent, which is a big contrast to many other characters in the show who routinely win fights just because their powers are stronger than their opponent's powers. So many of the characters in Naruto are proud and hot-blooded ninjas who have dreamed of becoming strong and revered warriors their entire lives. But Shikamaru is different. Shikamaru doesn't really give a shit about being a ninja. He only became a ninja because it was expected of him, seeing as he comes from a ninja clan. And you may be asking yourself, well, what does Shikamaru want to do with his life if he doesn't really want to be a ninja? And the answer is basically nothing.
All I really wanted was to be just an average shinobi, making an average living. I'd marry a regular girl who's not super pretty or super ugly. Have 2 kids, a girl and then a boy. Retire when my daughter got married and my son became a successful ninja. And spend the rest of my days just playing shogi or go. A nice, carefree and leisurely retirement.
All Shikamaru really wants to do is live a boring, peaceful life and just float along whatever path is laid out for him with as little resistance as possible. Just like a cloud floating aimlessly in the sky. Now, is that an admirable or respectable dream for a character to have? Not really, but it is painfully relatable to my own beliefs and sensibilities. Yeah, that's pretty much 1000% me. All the potential in the world with basically none of the motivation necessary to capitalize on it. I'm not saying I'm some genius child prodigy on the level of Shikamaru's intelligence, but I come from a family of very smart and accomplished people, and I was raised in a very intelligent environment, and I was constantly pushed by my parents and siblings to continue that lineage of higher education and aspirations. And here I am now making video essays about old anime, so clearly there was some sort of disconnect along the way. But exaggerated intelligence aside, Shikamaru was the first character I had ever seen that I really related to. It was the first time I felt like I was watching a version of myself on screen, and as anyone else who has had that experience will tell you, it's an incredibly powerful and unforgettable moment. I've always said that one of the greatest strengths of the Naruto anime is that despite how great of a story that it is with Naruto as its main character, there are so many other side characters who could have carried their own show without Naruto in it. Kakashi, Itachi, Rock Lee, Sasuke, Gaara, they all have such powerful and relatable backstories, character arcs, epic fights, and heartwarming and heartbreaking moments. Shikamaru is definitely on that list, and in my opinion, he's at the very top of it. Being a lazy genius who's forced to fight in a world of bloodthirsty ninja killers is a great enough setup for a good story, but the character arc and transformation that Shikamaru goes through over the course of the series is really what's endeared him to myself and so many other fans over the years. For the first 20 or so episodes, we only see Shikamaru sparingly, and in these scenes, we only get a small taste of his general personality and abilities. We see him teasing Naruto in the very first episode, and we see him talking shit before the Chunin exams. In the Forest of Death portion of the Chunin exams, we finally see him on the battlefield being strategic and also coming in clutch and using his Shadow Possession Jutsu to help rescue Team 7. But his true first moment of greatness doesn't come until the one-on-one elimination round against I swear I've never bothered to learn that character's name. This fight is when we really get to see just how smart Shikamaru is, and just how quickly he can think on his feet. He's his usual uncaring self before the fight starts, and even at the start of the fight as well. But as soon as he has his back against the ropes and he's put in real danger, his knack for developing quick strategies comes out in full force. I mean, hiding his Shadow Possession Jutsu under Keen's string, and then backing her up so that when she tried to dodge his attack, she knocked herself out on the wall. This is also the first time we hear his theme music, and yeah, all that needs to be said about it is,
this is a certified hood classic.
One of my favorite aspects about the OG Naruto that might also explain why I with Shikamaru so heavy is how much actual strategy and outthinking your opponent mattered in the fights back then. It feels like as the show went on, and especially in Shippuden, characters were winning fights with pure brute force as opposed to more tactical maneuvering, which is what Shikamaru excels at. And that's definitely a big reason as to why I love all of his fights so much. And his other fights in the OG series are just better versions of his fight against Keen. His fight against Temari is hands down one of the most memorable moments of the show for me. And it serves as a perfect example of who Shikamaru is as a character and what makes him so likable. The man gets thrown into the fight against his will, gets booed into oblivion by the crowd, proceeds to put on one of the most thrilling fights of the tournament, and ends up seemingly in perfect position to win, only to throw in the towel at the last second because he realized he didn't really want to keep fighting into the next round, even though he had the next 200 moves planned out in his head. He then proceeds to get booed into oblivion again, but then at the end of the arc, he ends up becoming the only participant in the Chunin exams to actually be promoted from Genin to Chunin based off of his performance. I fucked with Shikamaru before the Temari fight, but I think this is where I and many other Shikamaru fans really found out just how f***ing goated this man is. His fight with Tayuya in the Sasuke retrieval arc is also pretty dope, and him having to break his own finger to break himself out of her trance was a crazy twist. But the most important part about the Sasuke retrieval arc for me when it comes to Shikamaru is the ending. I made a video a while ago about the true meaning of Naruto being about failure, and how to deal with it and overcome it. The Sasuke retrieval arc is the true turning point in Shikamaru's arc of overcoming his laziness and lack of motivation, because this is his mission. All of the other Leaf Ninja that he selected to get Sasuke back are his friends and comrades, and he's the one in charge of making sure that they all make it home safe with Sasuke secured. Spoiler alert, he fails at both. Sasuke gets away, and Neji and Choji are left in critical condition, basically on their deathbeds. There are many emotional and tragic moments in the Naruto series, but I think one of the most underrated of those moments is when Shikamaru was in the emergency room of the hospital, waiting to hear the results of Neji's and Choji's operation after the mission. One of the hardest things to deal with in life is when you put your all into something, but still come up short. It's even worse when your failure leads to people that you care about suffering as well. Shikamaru had never put his all into anything until he was asked to lead this mission. And at this point in the episode, it looks like it all ended in complete disaster. The moment of him breaking down and crying in front of Tamari when he gets the news that Choji and Neji have survived and he vows to never fail his comrades again is one of my absolute favorite moments of the show. And it's the moment where Shikamaru makes the decision to kill off his laziness because now he's finally found the motivation to live up to his potential and make sure he's strong enough and smart enough to protect the people that he cares about. Spoiler alert again, he does not protect the people that he cares about. I'm not as big of a fan of Shippuden as I am of the OG series, but I do think that there are certain arcs of the Shippuden series that to this day are some of my favorite anime arcs ever. Asuma's death and Team 10's revenge on Hidan and Kakuzu is definitely on that list. The moment in the fight between Shikamaru and Asuma versus Hidan and Kakuzu, where Shikamaru realizes that none of his genius planning is going to save his childhood mentor, is so devastating to watch. And the opening sequence of the episode titled Team 10 that depicts Shikamaru mourning Asuma's death by attempting to bury his emotions inside, only to finally erupt in tears after having a heart-to-heart with his father, is arguably the most heart-wrenching moment in the entire series. But watching Shikamaru not even a day later find the motivation to think of a master plan to get his revenge and then go rally his old squad to go take on an immortal member of the fucking Akatsuki was... And then of course he goes full Roy Mustang on Hidan's punk ass. Shikamaru killing just as many members of the Akatsuki as Naruto by the end of the series is pretty wild when you really think about it. But narrative-wise, this is pretty much the peak for Shikamaru. From this point on, the only major thing of note is watching his relationship with Naruto grow to the point where he becomes Hokage Naruto's top advisor in the Boruto anime. Even though Naruto and Sasuke have their deep brotherhood bond, there's a solid argument that Shikamaru was really Naruto's closest and most consistent friend in the series by the end. I mean, even their sons become best friends and rivals. There are a lot of clear character arcs over the course of the Naruto anime, but I think that Shikamaru's is one that doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. When I watch the show now as a grown-ass man, I admire the man that he was able to become and the way that he was able to grow and overcome his flaws for the sake of others. Improving yourself is hard, and it can be a painful journey. So much so that a lot of people would rather run from that pain and that struggle and would rather remain stagnant in life without ever facing their problems head on. Maybe you're like me and you see some of yourself in Shikamaru and other people like him. If you are, then I don't really have to remind you how hard it can be to find the motivation to push forward and find something to be passionate about on a daily basis. But after years and years of looking, I finally found a few things that I truly care about and things that I'm willing to work towards and protect. The most important part about growth is to realize when it's needed, and then being open-minded enough to do what's necessary to manifest it. Shikamaru may not be the most important character, or the coolest character, or the most iconic character. But after watching this video, I hope you can at least understand why he's my favorite character.